32 crores. So this is the scale of the lives that it has costed, the lives that it has taken. Now, this is on the human. In addition to that, the kind of experience of losing one's near and dear ones, the experience of having become orphans, the experience, the distressing experience that people have gone through as far as accessing the health facilities is concerned. It is everybody's experience. All of us know it. It's such a recent experience, and in fact, an experience that is going on for the present as well. Now, so this is about impact on the humans, and as far as its impact on human psyche is concerned, you know it, the manner in which now the psychiatric problems have become important in India, and particularly with people of elder generation, as well as children equally affected. So all this is clearly indicative of the kind of impact that it has had on humans as such. Now, coming to the institutions, let's begin with home or the family. Family is the first institution. Its impact on the family is absolutely unfathomable in a sense. The whole meaning of home has got changed. Home, which once used to be a place for emotional management, a place for leisure, a place for tension management, a place for comfort, emotional comfort, the same home is now turned, because of the new development under the impact of COVID-19 of work from home experience. Home is turned into a workplace. And all those tensions of the workplace, all those stresses of the workplace have entered into the home. So, a place of leisure turned into a place of work, and taking a heavy toll on the emotional makeup of the family. In addition to that, of course, losing family members and thereby sort of loss of ties and bonds and relationships is important in its own place. I'm only just giving you passing references. I'm not going into the depth of the impact of these on the various institutions. As far as economy is concerned, another institution of society, a vital institution over which the whole social order to a great extent depends. Now, we know it that in the first wave itself, according to authentic agencies like IMF and World Bank, the Indian economy was affected by 8% of the loss of GDP. That is, the economy got contracted by 8%, so to say. As far as wave 2 is concerned, the second wave by 4% in addition to that 8. And then, of course, some of the latest estimates have it at 2.6%. So the economy is badly, it is shattered indeed. And we know it that economy is the bedrock of society and social organization. So one can very well imagine as to what does it mean to the people and their problems and the challenges that they are confronted with. Another important aspect of the economy is the livelihoods of the people, the employment, the jobs. Once again, authentic data in good amount is now available to document the impact of COVID on the livelihoods of the people. When it comes to livelihoods, we have to understand that poverty was a main problem of India, and as good luck for us would have it, the kind of anti-poverty programs that were launched by various governments in India, they were quite to a large extent helpful in alleviating poverty, in bringing down the poverty rate. So before COVID-19, that is until the end of 2019, a kind of trend of a steady decline in poverty. And soon after the COVID situation, as a result of the COVID, the poverty level went up. It now, and there are again, as I indicated earlier, reports which clearly document it and attest it. According to Pew Research Center, Pew, PEW, I'm sure you know it, is a very reputed international agency, American agency, which reports on various developments in the world. It has studied the impact of COVID on the livelihoods of the people, and it, according to the Pew Research Center, the number of poor doubled after the first wave itself. It doubled from 6 crore, 6.5 crore to 13.7 crore. So that is one estimate. Similarly, another research which is undertaken by another prestigious university, that is the Premji University, AMU. Now that, according to that research, indeed the total number of poor, 23 crores in the wake of COVID. Similarly, UN also has indicated it is indeed the two, that is the Amit Premji University and the UN, they are at par, more or less 23 crore there also. So what we find is that there came about a turnaround in the poverty situation. Yeah, and the poverty situation aggravated largely because of the loss of livelihoods of the people, and the kind of expenses on medicine, health, and other requirements. Most important of all, the kind of migration that occurred because of lockdowns that were imposed. So what we have is that net result the net result was that the poverty levels once again rose, and see it later in somewhat greater depth. Poverty is the most critical problem of India. Of course, it is a problem of many other nations too. However, as far as India is concerned, I'll discuss it in some depth tomorrow, that how poverty is number one, acute problem of India. Now, so this is about the impact on poverty, and as I indicated, it happened because of the loss of jobs. But one outcome of this poverty was the rise in hunger, starvation. There are a number of studies. Dalberg's study clearly has come out with the hunger, particularly among the women. The incidence of hunger was frequently reported by the respondents. So hunger, poverty, loss of jobs, hunger, this is all one complex that is complex of the economic impact of COVID. Now, moving to education, and you know it so well, how it has indeed disrupted the whole educational process and taken a heavy toll on the quality of education, in addition to the kind of adversely affecting the access of the people to the kind of education that they used to have. Many people, particularly of the lower strata of society, opted out of education, many children. So once again, education, it has terribly adversely affected. You take any institution for that matter, and you find that there are serious problems that have been caused by COVID. Now, as far as the government is concerned, before that, let us about, I think this will do about the institutions. Let's move on to the third point to which I made a reference earlier, and that is the structures of relationships. When you are talking of society, it comprises individuals in the first instance, it comprises institutions, and we have seen the impact of COVID on both. Then next comes the structures of relationships. So there is a class structure in society, there is a relationship structure, gender structure, in the structure of gender relationships in society. There are various kinds of structures the work structure in society. So what you have is these structures of relations. Now, what has been the impact of COVID on these structures of relationships? The impact is obvious as far as all these three to which I just, by way of example, made a reference, is there for anybody to see. Let us take up the class structure in the first instance. The middle class, which was a burgeoning class before COVID, before the onset of COVID, the size of the middle class got shrunk. I mean, Premji University as well as other researchers have indicated and with the data as to how the middle class shrunk by 1/3 of its size. So there was because people lost their jobs. Many people indeed, even if they were able to find some job, it was of a much lower income than what they used to have earlier. So it once again affected the class structure. Earlier, the middle class was becoming an important, a significant segment of society. Now, the same lower class, the poor class, the working class, it has acquired a bigger volume, and the volume of the middle class has declined. So this is, as far as the class structure is concerned, more important in relation to the class structure is the point of widening disparities between the classes, the higher class and the lower class, just for the sake of understanding it, the upper class and the lower class. Now, a number of data are available to show how the distance or the gap between the higher class and lower class has widened and how it has deepened. So it has led to glaring disparities between classes, particularly disparities of wealth and gender. These are the two which are particularly notable. As far as the disparities of wealth are concerned, the number of billionaires has increased. It's an interesting and a very curious as well as strange impact of COVID, that on the one hand, it has made rich super rich, and on the other, it has made poor abject poor, destitute poor. That has been the kind of, so it is not just that it has aggravated the situation of poverty. More importantly, it has brought down poverty to the level of destitution. The poor people have been rendered totally incomeless, and many of them have been made to starve, particularly the kind of migrants. I have had personal, I'm sure all of you have had that observation in this regard, even from the balcony of our house, because there is the main road around going from, I'm coming from Delhi through Gurgaon to Faridabad, and I can vividly recall those situations when thousands of these migrants with the luggage over their head and kids and women. There was a beeline of them over the road, and it was a pathetic sight to see. So from all that, you can make out how the disparities have widened. As a matter of fact, another important, perhaps more crucial and critical question of disparity is between the two genders, the men and the women. In fact, I would say not only two, but now three. The third category is LGBTQ groups. Now, the transgender persons, if you like. So these are the three. Now, the gender dimension has the three: men, women, and transgender. Now, what you find is that more the women have borne the brunt of COVID-19 more than men. And the data on employment, the loss of jobs, the data on the kind of workload, the data on the kind of incomes, all of that data, which has been advanced as a documentary evidence by a number of researchers, clearly shows to how the gap between men and women, particularly in their loss of jobs, in their incomes, in the kinds of workloads over them, has widened. Women, while only in the first wave, it is reported by a study that only 7% of women reported loss of job, as against 47% of women. That is the scale of disparity. More of women lost their jobs in the wake of COVID than men. And not only that, also that the workload of women became far heavier than that of the men. That is, even where the women was having employment of some form. As a matter of fact, even for the men, it was a difficult situation in the sense that they, besides the loss of job, there was also the dimension of, sliding down from formal job to informal economy. That is, they lost their formal jobs, their salaried jobs, and got consigned to informal economy, the kind of informal wages, or some of them even self-employment kind of situation. So for the men, of course, it was a hard, but it was a harder situation for women in particular. In respect of the gender dimension, as I told you, for instance, they used a term, secession, SHECESSION. It is like recession, just as you have in economics recession. They coined a term, particularly one of the intellectuals, he coined this term, and particularly the gender groups, the feminist groups, have adopted this term, and this is called secession, SHECESSION. It means decline in the level of confidence of women to find job for themselves now. So more than men, it is women whose level of confidence, not only that they lost their jobs, but now they have very little confidence of finding a new job, another job. And then their workload, of course, increased manifold, in the sense that not only that they were in a way withdrawn from the workforce, but at the home, then because of the presence of husband and kids and so on, they got subjected to much harsher work, much heavier work. So, and this is not just kind of general description or common sense description. there are studies which report all this document. I mean, this evidence is there, reported by the studies. And studies, when I'm referring to the studies, I'm not referring to ordinary studies. I'm referring to the authentic studies. For instance, as far as the women is concerned, Premji University reported how recently there is an organization called Dalberg, Dallberg, and I think it was just yesterday that yesterday or day before yesterday, there was a report in Hindustan Times of the two scholars of indeed they're partners of Dalberg. It's a voluntary organization, and they undertook a study of more than 5,000 women, through questionnaire to assess the impact of COVID on their income and so on, and the workload. And more than 80% of the respondents, particularly these women, reported that their workload has not only doubled but multiplied even more. So whatever I'm saying on the basis of evidence. And if you need evidence, you can always ask for it. I have the records with me. I can share it, that evidence with you with full references as far as this part is concerned. So this is about the impact on the structures of relationship between men and women. They also got victimized through, domestic violence. There was greater incidence reported during lockdown period of violence against women. That is the events of what is called domestic violence than in normal times. So because the people who were having frustration, the males, so they were trying to in a way transfer that frustration through violence over to women. That is the way it all happened. So this is about the impact on the structures of relationship. As far as values are concerned, even values are greatly affected. The whole value system, the value system of say equality, liberalism, pluralism, the liberal values, all the liberal values, they came under distress as a result of the COVID situation. We will have more about it as we move ahead. Now, this is about the impact. Now, the question is, what are the challenges that are involved in these impacts? What kinds of challenges can we decipher or glean from these impacts or these effects of COVID-19 over the people? No, to me it seems there are at least five challenges which can be clearly identified. And these are the challenges that need to be taken seriously. These are grave challenges. The first, of course, as I pointed out earlier, the first challenge is the challenge of poverty. The first challenge is the challenge of poverty. COVID has thrown to us the formidable challenge of poverty, starvation, hunger, and so on. The unemployment. This one complex, but all of them closely linked with either being caused by or being produced in terms of poverty. Now, in this regard, I would like to mention only one thing to you. Poverty is a real problem. Poverty is a real problem. You have to empathetically place yourself in the position of the poor person, the daily wage earner, in times of COVID, in times of lockdown, in times of, and जो रोज कुआ खोद के पानी पीने वाले लोग हैं, अगर आप साधारण भाषा में कहें इस बात को, तो उन पर क्या गुजरी है, ये हम और आप इन पॉश मकानों में और घरों में रहने वाले शायद उतना महसूस नहीं कर पाते. पर I think we have to become a little humane about it in order to be empathetically appreciate the kind of impact on their lives and life worlds, in order to understand the gravity of the challenge of poverty. Let us look at it like this. When about 1/3 of the people, and that was that was before the onset of pandemic, that is according to the UN estimate, 28% of India's population was poor, and this figure of 28% was brought down from, say, above 40% at one point of time. So as a result of the anti-poverty programs and other welfare schemes that were launched for ameliorating the condition of the poor, the poor were able to move out of their poverty. And still in India, it was 28%. Now, after the COVID, or in the wake of COVID, in fact, it is too early to call off after COVID. Post-COVID is perhaps still too far from us, that situation. We are still amid COVID and may go in this situation for a long time unless drastic actions are taken by our government and by the people themselves. So that apart, the point that I'm trying to make is, will you believe it that today, as far as, forget the world, in Asia, if you have to consider, India is poorer than Bangladesh. India is poorer than Nepal. Even among the small nations, which are satellite nations in one sense of India, that is the state of poverty aggravation in India as a result of pandemic today. Now, therefore, there was a time that people used to say that 1/3 of poor people of the world are there in India. Now, perhaps this figure needs to be revised. Far more than 1/3 of the poor. India is a home to far more than 1/3 of the poor of the world. As a matter of fact, the poverty levels have gone pretty high. Now, the very fact that this is the scale of poverty in India, I think this challenge has to be noted, because when we come to opportunities, and in my final lecture on COVID, I will come to the solutions. We will get back to this point. At the moment, I think we will do well, or it should suffice to note that poverty is challenge number one. The second challenge is inequality. And when I'm talking of poverty, I'm not talking of just only poverty. I'm talking of unemployment. I'm talking of hunger and starvation, all the complex that is related to poverty. So that is one. The second is inequality. Inequality is a real challenge, I tell you. Much before COVID struck, inequality has been a serious problem in India. I would even say the world over. One remarkable consequence of globalization in the world, if you limit yourself only to this century, of course, it began from 20th century itself, the last part of 20th century, the last decade of the 20th century itself. From 1990 onward, the globalization occurred, and even as globalization brought down the levels of poverty, even as it opened the doors for prosperity to some nations like India, China, Brazil, South Africa, etc., the BRICS nations, as they are called, the nations which have been the leading beneficiaries of the globalization process. So globalization served as a double barrel gun. On the one hand, it enabled these nations to gain economic growth, and as a result of that growth, material prosperity that happened. At the same time, it also was accompanied by widening of inequalities, widening and deepening of disparities. Now, so globalization led to, if you like, I would like to use the word massive inequality. Globalization led to massive inequality, not only in the world, India too. Now, already the problem of inequality was an acute problem. In that sense, it can be regarded as a chronic problem for India, the problem of inequality. You know, the reason why I consider it to be a chronic problem is because as a sociologist, I'm starkly aware, I'm keenly aware, acutely aware of the fact that all along the history, we have been a hierarchical society. All along the history, we have been a victim of vertical hierarchy. Now, the caste system, as you know, the institutionalized inequality. So we have had a tradition of institutionalized inequality, and when we got exposed to forces of modernization, obviously it became a lethal compound, a lethal compound. The background of institutionalized inequalities in our nation, in our culture, in our tradition, and our exposure to forces of modernization and later globalization, which has been a major agency of deepening and widening inequalities. So we already had this problem of inequality as a chronic problem. Let me put it like that. It was a chronic problem with us. It is a chronic problem. Now, as ill luck for us would have it, that chronic problem is turned into a grave and a very acute problem in the wake of COVID, because COVID has further accentuated, it has further widened the gap between not only the rich and the poor, not only the men and the women. And there, of course, I should have gone into it, but because of time constraint and so on, I didn't go. The transgenders were at the most receiving end in respect of those disparities. You know, their situation, the situation of the transgenders in terms of loss of jobs, in terms of starvation, in terms of incomes, is worse than that of the women. So the hierarchy is men suffered, women suffered the distress of COVID more than men, and transgenders suffered it even more than women. That was the kind of situation. Anyway, the point that we are on at the moment is that of disparities. And there, what we have to understand is that inequality poses a real critical challenge to India in the wake of, the number of billionaires in India. went up from 35, according to Forbes, to 140 during, and it is these super rich who were able to go to Dubai or to other foreign lands for vaccination. The people, the common man, is deprived from vaccination or deprived of vaccination to date, but they were able to. So now, on the one hand, that is the extreme end, and on the other hand, the poor people for whom the World Agriculture and Food Organization, the executive of that organization, made a very pithy remark that till such time as we can make vaccine available to the poor, food is the best vaccine for them. What we need to do is to provide food to them. Such is the scale of disparity that on the one hand, people are flying overseas to get a vaccine, and on the other hand, the poor people who are struggling for food. So now, the point that I'm trying to drive home to you is simple. You have to appreciate the gravity of the challenge of inequality. It's not a small challenge. Now, the third is the challenge to the healthcare system. COVID has posed a serious challenge to our healthcare system. It has posed a critical challenge in the sense that our whole healthcare structure, in a way, dwindled in the face of COVID. It was rendered helpless. Even those with the affordability, even those with money at their disposal, couldn't get a bed in the hospital, let alone a bed with ICU, in the ICU, or with the oxygen cylinder. So from elementary medicines to the scarcity of beds in the hospital, scarcity of oxygen, scarcity of even medical staff, it was all in short supply, and our health system caved in under the pressure of pandemic. Now, obviously, it poses a challenge. Why we have been all along shouting that we are a developing nation and we are having we figure among the few developing nations with the rapid growth, with economic increase in economic growth, the GDP and so on. And the fact remains that while say from 1990 onward, if you compare the two periods before 1990, that is before globalization, and post 1990, that is after globalization, or as a result of globalization, in the midst of globalization, surely there came about a turnaround in economy. From a backward economy, we moved into a forward economy. There's no doubt about that. But what happened to our health care system? Did we have that kind of somersault in the healthcare system also? No, not at all. Our healthcare system remained where it was before globalization. So even as we acquired economic prosperity, higher GDP, and so on and so forth, when it came to factors affecting human development, like health, like education, and so on, I think we didn't do enough. We didn't do what we should have done. And I'm speaking of it on the basis of significant evidence. I'm not talking about it Will you believe it that the health expenditure in India is only 1.2% of GDP? And notably, the lowest in the world. This is Bharat Mahan. Yet we have the audacity to say Bharat Mahan, the great India. This is the reality of great India. Note now further, and I'll have more to say about it later. It's important for you to understand it, because I wish you make it, and when you make it, you will have to grapple with these challenges. And therefore, it's extremely important for you, because these are not only the challenge of COVID. COVID has only aggravated them, accentuated them. These have been the chronic challenges of Indian society, and therefore it's extremely important for us to be sensitive to these challenges, understand them, and think of ways and means by which we can overcome these challenges. So what we have to understand is a simple thing. Recently, the finance minister, Sitaraman, she came up with a package, a support package, a help package. And with all fanfare, she claimed that we are now trying to do something for the people. And do you know it? This is how many? 2,600 crores or something like that. I don't remember exactly the figure. I'll let you know tomorrow. Now, out of this, how much is earmarked to health? And at a time when we are running short of vaccines, we are all the time saying that we should strengthen our health structure and healthcare structure, healthcare infra, and so on. In spite of that, how much, even this latest relief package, it is only 2.4% of the total package. The finance that is earmarked, that part of this package which is earmarked for health is only 2.4%. Now, I don't know what is so fundamentally wrong with our leadership. Why are they not understanding it? It is not economic growth. They are pumping a lot of money into economic growth. They are giving, they're trying to revive economy by giving tax exemptions to the corporates and so on. They are doing everything for that section. But the one problem that is going to affect lives of the people, common man, and that is a problem of health. A challenge that we are so acutely exposed to. And this is our commitment. This is our commitment to health now. So you can very well see how the challenge of health care system is a serious challenge. So this is challenge number 3. Now, yet another challenge is that of gender injustice. I have already sensitized you to the kind of scale of gender gaps that we have in terms of, if you like, work, in terms of income, in terms of wealth, and above all in terms of the value system, the social attitude, social outlook towards gender relationships. I really, and we will have occasions to discuss it, I'm at my wit's end to appreciate it, to understand it, to why can't they accept the reservation, women's reservation bill? Why can't they pass the women's reservation bill? Because I'm absolutely confident that there is no way in which the distressed gender, the women and the transgenders, are going to receive justice at the hands of any government unless they contest, unless they combat, unless they fight. And for that, they have to be in the parliament, they have to be in the state legislatures in good strength. So, but it's not granted. It has been hanging fire for decades now, at least more than 2 decades now, about 3 decades, and nothing done. We have had Sonia Gandhi, we have had earlier Indira Gandhi, we have had women prime ministers, but nobody has been able to, I mean, you can accuse men, but we have had women leaders at the Health of Affairs, and still nothing much seems to have been done. So gender injustice is and the point is that who have borne the brunt of this COVID or this pandemic? It is not, I mean, of course, men have, but far more than men, it is women, because they are the caregivers, they are the homemakers, they are the people who are emotional managers for all practical purposes, tension managers for us. And so they have to absorb all the tension that we experience, we pass it on to them. This is gender injustice. Now, another and the most important challenge is that of climate management, or if you like, climate crisis, climate change. You might be wondering, so what has it got to do with environment, the COVID? If anything, it appears as if it had a good impact on the environment. The pollution levels went down, and people were able to get fresh air, clean air, and so on and so forth, because there wasn't much mobility, the people were not out on the roads and in the streets. So no, you have to understand it in a broader context. You know that COVID is a result, it is a disaster of environment. It's an environmental disaster. How come? If you think, this takes us to the question of genesis of COVID-19, the virus. If it had natural origin, then the very fact that we have been trying to conquer nature, we have been taking huge pride in saying that we are invincible, we have won, we have humiliated nature, we have controlled it, conquered nature. So if it is a natural origin, the virus is a natural virus, then it indicates that all our claims were tall claims. All our claims of conquering nature, conquering ecology, conquering environment were tall claims, false claims. And if it was a man-made virus, which it is being, suspected to be. There is still not an authentic evidence to determine as to whether it was born in the lab, this virus, whether it was born in the lab or outside the lab, that is in natural environment. The suspicion is that it was let out from the lab. It was born in the lab, and by accident it came out of the lab and then infected the whole world. Either way, the point that I'm trying to impress upon you is important. Either way, its root cause lies in the environment. The root cause of this pandemic, COVID-19, so-called coronavirus, lies in environment, whether natural or man-made. And if man-made, which is what is being suspected, greater evidence of it that it got out of the lab, China, Wuhan lab was working on it, experimenting on it. By accident, it came out of the lab. And some conspiration theorists even would go to the other extreme, would say that no, it was planned. It was not just accident. It was released by China in order to increase its economic and political might in the world. That will be scandalous. I think I don't subscribe to that theory, conspiration theory, but sure, it could be accident. There is a greater probability of it being an accidental let out. Now, whatever it is, the point is that now environment is more important than the fact that it was a consequence of the environmental degradation is the fact that now in the light of what we have experienced, the manner in which we are playing havoc with the environment, the manner in which mankind, by we I mean the mankind, is still playing havoc with the environment in the name of economic growth, pursuing, seeking, achieving economic growth and material prosperity. We are playing havoc with the environment. We are plundering environment. Now, the challenge that it holds is a real and critical challenge. And the challenge is that it is indicative of a far more dreaded, far more frightening pandemic that is on the anvil, and that will be the challenge of climate crisis, the environmental crisis. We are already having huge evidence of it. The manner in which glaciers are melting, the manner in which sea levels are rising, the manner in which radical fluctuations of weather or climate are taking place, the manner in which rain cycle is destabilized, the manner in which air is getting polluted, the manner in which soil degradation is taking place, all of that is clearly leading us to a pandemic which will be far, far more serious than the one that we are confronted. So, in a way, it poses that challenge of environmental preservation, or I would say environmental degradation. Challenge of that is the challenge that the manner in which we are degrading our environment. In spite of all this clear signal, the COVID is born out of environment. It's a consequence. It's a product of this disaster is a result of environment, our playing havoc with the environment, and we still are carrying on with it with the same havoc with the environment. God save us. So these are the critical challenges that it's one thing to speak of unemployment and this and that. They are important challenges, but no challenge is as grave and real as is the challenge of climate mismanagement. So these are the challenges that we have. Above all, there is one more challenge, and of course, tomorrow's session will be devoted primarily to that challenge. I can, at the moment, just make a passing reference to that. The challenge to development paradigm. COVID has posed a serious challenge, a grave challenge to the development, to the paradigm of development that mankind has adopted, that we are following. the paradigm of development that we are following is the paradigm of development as economic growth, right? This what does development mean to you when you listen, when you hear this word? What does it, what image does it bring in your mind, bring up in your mind? As soon as you hear of development, what comes to your mind? The one imagery that immediately occurs to any and everybody is that of economic growth. Development means, so developed countries or developed nations are the ones which are economically prosperous with higher rate of economic growth. Underdeveloped or developing are those which are relatively economically less prosperous and have lower rate of economic growth. This is what development means. Now, COVID has posed a serious and a formidable challenge to this notion of development. What are the avenues, what are the dimensions of gravity of this challenge? We will go into that tomorrow. But today, I think this should suffice for you to note that this is the sixth challenge that COVID has posed to us, and the one which is of extremely great importance because all other challenges can be met if only we are able to meet this challenge of development. After all, what do you need to take care of poverty? What do you need to solve the problem of whether it is health infra or whatever problems we have talked of? You need money, you need economy, you need growth. So the challenge to development, particularly the paradigm of development that we are following, is of generic importance. It's of profound importance from that point of view, and therefore we have to understand that these are the challenges that have been posed by the COVID. Now the point is, it is for us to look at these challenges and take the call of COVID to turn it into an opportunity. We are now poised to define our future. In view of the challenges that COVID has posed to us, we are put in a position to define our future. How do we look at these challenges? Do we take these challenges glibly, non-seriously, or are we able to fathom the gravity of these challenges so as to think of the ways and means to overcome them? It's a question of our existence. This question is that of the existential order. The future of mankind will depend on its struggling, unraveling, surmounting this challenge of development. Because what is it that we are doing in pursuing development? What is the whole development endeavor about? It is about shaping our destiny. It is about shaping the future of mankind. After all, why are we having development? What are we doing by way of development? We are only trying to shape our future. No? Aren't we doing that? We are doing precisely that. And therefore, I believe, personally, I'm absolutely clear about it, that this is the challenge first and foremost. If only we are able to handle this challenge, other challenges can be then taken care of one by one. So this is mother challenge, if you like. This is the fundamental challenge that we are faced with. So, but I'll discuss it at length and in depth tomorrow, this whole challenge of development.